So today is the 9th of January, and we are officially starting the review for your final. The review for the semester one final, to be specific. And there's a lot of things to talk about. So I want to show you, first of all, where you can find your review documents, the things you can use to review for this final. And you really have to think of this differently than, okay, my teacher's going to assign me stuff. It's more about, if you want to do well on your final, you need to be in charge of that. You need to decide what you should do, and you need to do that, and then you're going to report back to me what you did. We're going to keep it really simple. You might decide that in this chapter review, final review here in Schoology, would you please find that and open it? You might say that, I wish Mr. Server would just assign us a worksheet and I could just do it. Well, there is a worksheet. There's something called the practice exam right here. And this is the practice exam key. Could you do that as your review? Yep, that'd be simple. Okay, but do you think everybody needs to practice the same exact things? No, some people probably are really good at certain things and don't need to practice those things. So you might want to do that practice test, but pick and choose. You might go through it and only do I don't know, 1/5 of the problems, because those are the ones that you know you're bad at. Whatever you do, take a screenshot of it though, because at the end, there's going to be a Dropbox on the last day, on the day of the final. You're going to Dropbox the screenshots of everything that you did to review for the final. For some kids, that'll be absolutely nothing, okay? And that will hurt their grade a little bit, and then it'll hurt my opinion of them a little bit because they didn't do anything to review the final, and it'll give me no mercy when I am grading their final. So somebody else who does a ton of work, maybe they're not awesome at math, but they work really hard to study for their final, and then they do badly on the final, I'm much more likely to have mercy because, hey, I see they took screenshots of all these practice problems they did. They worked really hard at it. I can give them a break. Okay? Am I going to just I like this kid and they worked hard, I'll give them an A? No. But I can at least reflect that in your grade. Okay? So bottom line, take a screenshot of all the things that you do to review. One of them might be this practice exam, but it doesn't have to be that at all. How can you find things you're bad at? Well, there's a folder for each chapter, and they're in order. So the very first functions review one, that pinkish one here, everybody open that one, please. And then find the key, the solutions. Open that one. Why am I going straight for the key? Because sometimes you might not recognize a question, but then as soon as you see, oh, this is that kind where you just stick a number in a function. Yeah, I remember this. You see the work shown, you might be like, yeah, I got this. But what if you got to really look through it close. What if you realize, oh, wait a minute, I never was good at this kind where it's just a function like eating another function. That's the kind where you go, okay, I should probably go do F. So now you'd go back to the worksheet itself. You wouldn't try to memorize that. That'd be dumb. The point is to see, do you know how to do it? Go over here into the actual worksheet, and you find F as in Frank, and then you try that one. And if you struggle, of course, you can go back, look at the key. So then once you do it, and you've finished all the problems that you're going to do on that page, take a screenshot. There's your evidence that I worked on that. Okay, there should be a lot of things you work on. Now, how you work on them is up to you. One last thing that could be good for you is watching videos. So how do you evidence that you watched videos? You can videotape yourself watching videos. That'd be conception. That'd be kind of cool. But no, what I'd recommend you do is take notes while you're watching the videos. And I would write, video on, and I'll show you where those videos are. Video on polynomials, and this is the notes you took, which is basically doing the problems with me and stuff. Take a screenshot of that. Boom, you got more evidence that you studied for your final. Do you get that this allows you to customize it? If you hate Schoology quizzes, you don't have to do Schoology quizzes. One of the teachers just posted a Schoology quiz for every unit and said do all of them. And I know some of you would have turned inside out like, oh my gosh, like 6 Schoology quizzes, I'm going to die. Well, you don't have to do that. You can do it on paper, worksheets, you know, and look at the answer keys that way. You could watch videos. Here's where the videos are. See at the bottom here, it says, not the very bottom, but for review videos during this time, click here. Okay, so you obviously have some review videos listed in there. You have to be logged into your school Google account, I think, to get into that one. And then you got some videos. Remember, the only way I can get kind of proof for you on that is that you watched them is take some notes. And just write at the top, notes on video, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So I'm trying to make this all about you figuring out and doing what's best for you to study for the final. And some of you need more studying than others. Okay, so if somebody just like has gotten A's on every single test, do you think they need to spend gajillions of hours studying for this test? No, if you got an A on every single test, you probably don't need to do as much as one of the other kids that's barely been getting a B. Yeah, they should probably do like 3 times as much. All right, so I will understand if you got a really high score that you don't probably have to study that much. So your submission to me at the end in that Dropbox of all the Dropbox will have is submit what you did here, and you're going to just take screenshots. Please just make it screenshots. A whole bunch of screenshots thrown into a Notability doc. I can scroll through them and see how much work did this kid do. Okay? All right. Do you see how that lets you tailor it to you? Does it mean I don't want you to do anything? No. Please do something. Please do several hours between now and finals, which is like a week from now. Like at least a couple hours worth. And you're going to have some time in class where you can do this too. Okay, so screenshot enough to justify that, yep, this kid, they tried hard. Then we'll just see how you do in the final. All right, last thought on how could this impact your grade. I would say for most kids, if they study just kind of an average amount, they do a little worse than average on their final. Like if they normally average an 88%, they might get an 85 on the final. Because it's harder, because it's just got more stuff on it. There is a half of it about is multiple choice, so don't worry that it's all impossible questions. And it is scored Marzano style, but not exactly the same as a normal test because we allow for more in-betweens. Like it isn't just a straight 85 and then up to 95. There's like stuff in between, but it's Marzano style in general, meaning that you don't have to get 95% of the questions right to get a 95. Okay. So last, what I need to still put in the 2 assignments from recently that I had you do and drop in the Dropbox. I haven't even looked at those yet. Okay, if you turn them in now, they'd be counted late and therefore wouldn't matter. So don't bother to go try to scramble and throw them in there now. But those I haven't put in yet. After I do, then I'm going to drop the 2 lowest from this semester and the 2 lowest from last semester. That will instantly boost everybody's grade. So from right this second, some of your grades are going to go down a little bit because I'm going to put in 2 assignments that if you were really lazy over the last week or so and didn't do those, that's going to hurt your grade a little bit. Everybody, as soon as I drop the lowest 2, everybody's grade goes up just a little bit. Depends on the kid. For some kids, they have a bunch of zeros, and when the goals get thrown out, their grade goes up a fair amount. All right. But then, how much you study for the final will determine whether or not you're one of the rare kids who actually raises their grade with the final. It's really hard to do because most of you guys are already in that 90-ish%. Think about the math on this. If you already have like 90% and you get a 90%, does that raise your grade? No. It's only by however much you are above your score. If you had a 90 and you get a 90, you didn't raise it at all. If you had a 90 and you got a 92, but only on something worth 10% of your grade, it's not going to move you that much. Okay? So most people stay the same. A few kids move down because they have a really bad final, and a few kids move up. And they're usually kids that had like a B because it's easier to move a B up than it is to move an A up. Because you can easily outscore a B on the final. If you already have an A, how do you outscore that on the final to raise the average? It's just very difficult to do. Okay, so there's what's likely to happen. Is if you study, at least you hopefully will prevent your grade from dropping. That's your main goal right now, is to look at your grade, what it is right now, and try to keep it. Because if you don't do anything between now and the final, you just took it. If you just set it on your desk right now, you could all probably pass it. But it might lower a fair number of your grades. If we study a little bit, hopefully you just won't lower your grade. And in a few rare cases where you have like a B, like 85% or lower, a really strong final could raise you. Does that make sense? All right. How many of you have actually taken the time in the past to look at your final and go, I can get a 60% on this final and still have the same grade? You've done that before? Raise your hand if you've done it. It's totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that. In my opinion, that's just smart time management, because I know you have a lot of things to study for. If you're like, I could get an F on my math test and still get an A, there are a few of you that could. I'm not going to name names. Literally, there are people in this class who could get an F and could still get an A in this class. I get they may want to allocate more of their time to studying for their English test, where, you know what I mean? Like, they really need some help there. So I'll factor that in as well. If you've already got a super high score, I get you're not going to probably need to spend as much time studying. Okay, so if you were to summarize what I just said about how to study, I hope you would have heard he wants us to do a couple hours of studying. He's going to let us do whatever we think would help the most and take screenshots of it and drop in the Dropbox at the end to prove that we did study. He also suggested I could look at keys, because it'd be a good way to find problems that I'm not good at. Because at least you won't be just staring at it going, I can't remember how to start. You can look at the key and go, oh yeah, I remember how to start this, and ooh, I was never very good at that. That's a hint. Go study that. Okay? So there's a lot of thoughts about how you can effectively use the next few days to study for your final. If that was just too much, I'm going to simply do a few problems that are typical things off of the functions final review and the transformations final review. And I'm going to do a few tomorrow, and I'll do a few the next day. I'll just be doing a few problems with you on the board to kind of jog your memory about stuff that you've had recently. So I'm going to pause for a second while I get the first problem up. Okay, on this one called functions review, in a moment I'll ask you to turn your iPad my way, show me that you're there. I hope it's super simple for you to just stick a number into a function. That should be like, oh my, that was easy back when life was good and easy. But functions eating other functions is a challenging question for a lot of kids. So let's look at F. All right, the K is going to eat the H. First thing I would do is write this K function down with an empty spot where the variable is. Do you get that an X means an empty parenthesis? That's really what it means. I could have used that the whole time since elementary school. Every time there was an X, you could have just had an empty parenthesis there. And then you can drop in whatever you want. Well, what do we want to drop in? We want to drop in H. We're making this have evaluated for H. So stick in H of X. Well, that's here. So that goes in here. 3x to the third plus 4x squared minus 8. And then if I can just simplify it down, that's it. That's all there is to it. It's not that bad, but it is a little bit harder compared to the rest of the ones on this page. So what was the steps again? You write the function with an empty parenthesis for its variable, and then you put in the other function. All right, another topic I'd like to cover with you briefly is this kind. Would you please find on the graph what I mean by saying f of 5? And just put a little dot there or something. If you don't have your iPad, which I understand because it's not working or whatever, you can just look on the board here and find, when I said f of 5, what point did I mean? Are you looking at this point right here? Because that would have been right. And that's where x is 5. Notice when they put it in this spot, they're saying x is 5. What if they instead, oh, by the way, what's the answer? f of 5 is, well, it wants the y at this spot. That spot is 5 comma 4, so f of 5 is 4. Okay, over this other one, they did not give me the x. They gave me f of x. That's f of x code for y. So it's basically saying y is 4. Look on the graph, please, and figure out where that must be. So on this one, if they're saying y is 4, I go over here to 4 on y. And this is the line for y equals 4. So apparently that's the important spot here too. Would you agree for this point right here, I could write f of 5 is 4. Doesn't that fit with this? And it tells us that f of 5 is 4. So really they're saying x is 5. So they're either giving you x or they're giving you y. Whenever they give you the little thing in the parenthesis, they're giving you the x. So there's a couple concepts from this worksheet. The last one, we don't do many of these, so I want to come back to it. And I do remember that they use this in calculus, which is where you're eventually going to be. So let's practice this kind where they have functions off of a chart. So tell me, Mr. AR, if they tell me f of -1, what did they just tell me? Exactly. They're telling me that x is -1. So I follow across here in the x column until I find -1, and there it is. What do you think I should do? Yep. So we use this one, and we use this one, and where they overlap is at 2. So you're right. The answer is 2. All right. AS. On letter B, can you tell me what they told us? Okay, and if g of x is equal to 1, who cares? What do I do with that? Exactly. I'm trying to find the x. So where do you think I should go in my chart to do that? I like it. So I'm going to go to the g of x function, which is right here. And then since g of x equaled 1, does that mean I should go up here and say x equals 1? No. That's where x is. X isn't equal to 1. G of x is equal to 1. So, Miss S, there's kind of two answers. Can you explain? And how is there another answer? Yeah, so g of x is also 1 right here, and so it would lead you to an x of 0. This has an x of -2. This one has an x of 0. And why do I know that they wanted x? Because it says x is what I want when that. So I want the x. X was 1. X was -2. All right, so there's 3 kinds of questions that you may have forgotten how to do because that was in September. It's been a while. Before we even had Halloween. Yes, it's still hot out. It's not anymore. Yes. Would x equal 0? Yes, you're right. Thank you for catching that. It's not 1. It's 0. Good call. Because that's this one right here. You're right. X equals 0. Very good. Okay. Now, I want to move and talk about the other worksheet for the day, which is going to be, I'm going to pause while I find that. So we're going to go back here, and if we're not going to cover everything, the things that seem logical to skip for me is the ones we just got tested on, which are these ones. And so I'm going to try to cover at least 2 each day, hopefully. So I'm going to cover these 2 today, and hopefully these 2 tomorrow. And who knows, maybe I'll spend a little bit of time talking about the ones from recently. But all right, so transformations final review. This one right here. Would you please go in there? And then go go to the worksheet. And then let's pull it up in a PDF. This is the kind where we had a whole bunch of functions and they were moving around. This is the moment where you learned that the stuff on the inside kind of did the opposite of what you expect. Do you remember high-vo, horizontal on inside, vertical on outside? Okay. So if, just to kind of get your brain warmed up about this stuff, would you try this one here, number 1? And again, you can use this as like part of stuff you did to prepare. Now granted, this I'll know I did in class, so I won't be too impressed that you did this. But if you add on a few other problems from this page, take a screenshot, evidence that you did review. Okay. So this equation, hint, it's a parabola. But that'd be a little too easy because this parabola has been moved. Ms. Smith, do you remember how to do this? +1, and then +1 on the outside. Very good. Then domain and range. Domain is from left to right. If I extend this function this way and this way, how far will it go? Answer? You guys are really out of energy, aren't you? Yes. Very good. Negative infinity to infinity. And then the range, that's about how low it goes to how high it goes. Always put the smaller number first. People all the time will say infinity to like 2. Wrong. The smaller number has to be first. So what's the smallest that its y can be? 1 to, what's the biggest that y can be? Infinity. So there's some reminder about domains and ranges. I'd say the harder ones are probably actual graphs. And this would be one of the trickier ones. Seems really scary, but it's not that bad. That's a square root that has been flipped, stretched, moved, and moved. Unless you want to graph a square root and then do all of those things to it, you got to use your best friend in graphing, which is the XY chart. And if I was doing it, I would go, that's a square root. So the F part, here, I'll write it in red. This F part, that means square root of. So I'm going to write this as a square root. 3 square root of, and then inside the square root, you'd have negative x plus 1. And then you have a plus 2 on the outside. There's the actual thing they want you to graph. And so I'd use my XY chart and I'd figure out some good numbers to use. I'd probably figure out where generally this thing is. Would you agree that it's been flipped left, right? It's like this. It's been moved to the left and it's been moved up. Your answer should be in this neighborhood. How do I verify it? XY chart. Pick some points. So let me pick like negative something, like maybe -1. I'll put in a -1 and I'll see what happens. I get 0, 0, 0, 0 plus 2. -1 comma 2. I guess I went a little high. That's the first point. And then it probably rises from there. So my graph, you can see I kind of estimated a little too high there. It's pretty close though. Okay, description, that's this. Unless the, oh wait, it does say describe the transformations. So that would be where you'd say the part I said before. Reflection, left 1, up 2, vertical stretch. That makes it basically go up like this. Okay. Now I want to give you a lot of freedom that can be used for good or for evil. Please use it for good. You can have people around you that also have the same test to take as you. If you guys can agree on something that you want to work on together, that's totally okay. If you want to just ask a kid for help here and there, if you want to ask me for help, that'll work too. I do have some tests to hand back to you also, so I'll get you those results. And then that's all I have for you for today. Okay.